Breaking barriers and inspiring young minds one story at a time. That's what children's book author Greg McGoon has been doing with his work. This week, he'll release his highly anticipated 8th book, Once Upon Another Fairy Tale.
So he's continuing his mission to uplift children with diverse and inclusive narrative. Greg, joined us now to continue the conversation this morning. And I think he has Oliver sitting on his lap. How you doing, Greg? Good to see you this morning.
I'm doing very well, and this is Oliver, for those wondering. He is on my lap.
Such a cutie. Tell us a bit about yourself and how you got started as an author and what inspired you to begin writing years ago.
Wow. Well, I got started. My first book was released in 2014, and I think through I was living in New York at the time, and I have been working with kids in various theater programs and creative arts programs for over 20 years now, which is wild to think it's been that long since I've been involved in theater programs for kids and just in that world. And storytelling has always been an active part of that. So in doing so, and I started a nonprofit in 2012, Art Centricity, that was creative arts for youth development. And I think just in the time and doing workshops and programs and working with such a diverse range of children, from anywhere from preschool to through high school, trying to navigate communication and helping them retain information and let them experience things fully. I translated that into my stories and what it is that was best able to communicate with them. And yeah, it kind of all just evolved from that, and all those experiences and the Tangalos, I think that picture just popped up, which is really about navigating emotions and the complexity of that and how our thoughts get twisted and turned inside out. And I think at the time I was writing, we were noticing, or at least I was noticing, a lot more children relying on their phones and digital communication to relate to people. And I wanted to create stories that helped kind of take us back to non-digital times and really understand ourselves and our emotions and our feelings more so.
Important messages and lessons for kids of all ages, for sure, Greg. So let's talk about your new book and your 8th, Once Upon Another Fairy Tale, and that's coming out March 18th. What's it about, and how did your dog Oliver influence the story? Because he makes appearances in a lot of your work.
He does. This is his 3rd appearance in my work. I really love this new book. It has been a little over 3 years since my last release, and Once Upon Another Fairy Tale is in fact a follow-up to my 2021 release of Once Upon a Fairy Tale. And in that first book, it is Oliver finds himself transported into a book of fairy tales and transforms the lives or changes the lives of these iconic classic fairy tale characters that we all know and love. And in the first book, we really tackle the big 5, which is Little Red, Snow White, Sleeping Beauty, Cinderella, and Beauty and the Beast. And I always had ideas of wanting to explore the topic further and using characters that I grew up with and that I love. And Once Upon Another Fairy Tale is just really fun for me to have done because it's more elaborate and expanded upon the first one. And for those who know me, know how much Alice in Wonderland was such a significant influence on my childhood and growing up and how much it shaped me. So it was really fun to be able to include characters from Alice in Wonderland in this new book, in addition to Rapunzel and The Little Mermaid and Hansel and Gretel. And yeah, it's a story about Oliver kind of much older now, and he's kind of on his last kind of leg, not knowing how much more adventure he has left in him, until a chance encounter with a little fairy changes his life and sends him on a new, even grander adventure in this world where he gets mixed up in all these stories, and he tries to process what exactly this means as an older dog and what aging is. And the book is really sentimental. I can't even read it without crying at the end. And it's not just me. My editor and a few of the early readers have also called me crying after reading the book. So I'm very fond of it, and I'm really excited for it to be out there. And because of the new book, I did a re-release of the 2021 Once Upon a Fairy Tale. That's kind of an expanded version, so tonally it better suits the new book, which is for early readers, probably about 6 to 8, but I think can be loved by everyone.
I think this is going to be a really cool story to share with so many kids around the country. We should also note that it's also the 10th anniversary of your other series, The Royal Heart, which introduces a character who embraces life beyond gender binaries, which is certainly a topic that's especially timely in today's political climate. What reflections do you have on its impact both for yourself as an author and for the LGBTQ plus community as a whole?
Wow. I mean, there's a lot for me to think about on this one because it is the 10-year anniversary, and it is baffling and alarming and devastating that we're at this point where we're making this move towards complete like trans erasure and this political prioritization of removing the trans experience entirely. And I would never have foreseen that 10 years ago that we'd be at this point. And that as a society, or that the denial of their humanity, and for what? Like, what are we gaining? It's not going to lower grocery prices or interest rates or provide you a livable wage by denying the humanity of anybody, more or less the LGBTQIA community, which the T has already been erased in a lot of ways. So, and back in 2014, when I wrote this book, I wrote it in 2014, it was released in 2015, and it was right before the Caitlyn Jenner reveal. And I was swept up in I was propelled in this media frenzy, which I was not aware of, or like prepared for or anything, just being asked all these questions on the LGBTQIA community and trans and even Caitlyn Jenner. And people kept, and I was credited as being the guy who wrote the first ever transgender fairy tale. And I wanted to clarify that back in 2015, saying, well, I wrote a fairy tale with a trans character. It's a character that is expressing themselves, and it is done through gender in this book. But really, I wrote a book about love and respect and leadership. And it doesn't matter who you are to be a leader, as long as you are true to yourself. And I mean, that's still debatable now to be a leader, but ideally a leader is true to themselves and has the best interest of everybody in mind. And it doesn't matter your gender or how you relate to the world, as long as your intentions are pure. So it's shocking to see that that now here we are, and the fight for people's rights is up for debate again, even further away from where we were then. So.
Well, Greg, thank you so much for speaking with us today. You're certainly including lots of different themes in your work that I think a lot of people can relate to, and I think your work's going to inspire a lot of people. And we're excited about this new book, too, and continuing to follow Oliver's journey.
Thank you very much.
Congrats.
Thank you.
And thank you for sharing these stories, too. They're certainly important, not just every day, but certainly in the time that we're in right now. So, Greg, thank you for your time this morning. Great to chat with you.
Thank you for having me.